Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first SynergyNets Policy Workshop, Enabling Flexibility as a Market Service. My name is Evan Bernardi. I am a project officer at European Power, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all today for this interesting and timely debate. So before we start, I would like to remind you that this workshop is being recorded and will later be available on the YouTube channel of European Power. For those who register, also the presentations of the speakers will be made available, will be sent to you shortly after this workshop. So we know that district heating and cooling can provide an untapped potential uh, for flexibility in energy markets. Technologies like large-scale thermal storage, smart control systems, and power to heat can help alleviate stress on both electricity and gas grids. However, the current market setup and regulatory framework sometimes fail to recognize such potential that district heating and cooling has. And this is the goal of this workshop, is to present the enormous potential that multi-energy systems have and discuss how supportive policy and regulatory frameworks can help unlock this potential and contribute to accelerating sector coupling and facilitating the decarbonization of the energy sector. So, okay, yeah, these slides are working. So with this in mind, the Synergy Nets project invited a group of selected speakers who will present on different angles of the flexibility as a market service. First, we're going to have Luca Neumann, who is a senior policy advisor at European Power, who will speak at the regulation session and talk about the challenges faced by multi-energy systems and what should be considered in future policy and regulations. Then we move to the policy session where we have Heidi Adamson from the DG ENER of the European Commission that will present a little bit about the heating and cooling strategy, the upcoming document for the heating and cooling sector of the European Commission. In the technology session, we're going to have the speakers Claudia Vanucci from IFER and Ivan Pavic from Cybergrid, who will present the potential of trading flexibility in the evolution of multi-energy systems. Finally, we're going to have Alessandro Cirocco from A2A, who will talk about the demo case in Milan of the project, SynergyNets, and give a hands-on experience on how the city is integrating different grids on the energy sector. Finally, the project coordinator, Renato Luise, will coordinate a roundtable and Q&A session. And of course, you are free to send your questions in the Q&A box, but do not forget this is also a workshop, so you're also free during the Q&A session to turn on your camera and open your mic and speak and engage with the speakers. The idea is also to make the session interactive and interesting for everyone. You're free, of course, to share insights, to ask questions, or comment and engage with the speakers. Um, so before I give the floor to the speakers, I want to say a big thank you to all of them for joining us today. A big thank you also to the moderator, Renato, who will coordinate the roundtable. And of course, the events team of Your Hidden Power. Thank you so much for helping us in coordinating this event. Uh, One big announcement, however, before we go to the presentations, we already have the date and the title for the second SynergyNets Policy Workshop that is going to be about peak heat loads, optimizing grid stability in low carbon networks. It will be held on the 4th of December. You are already invited to join us. You can scan the QR code below and register for this workshop. Now, without further ado, I will give the floor to Luca Neumann, who is the Senior Policy Advisor at European Power, in the regulation session. Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Evan. Thank you for the good introduction of this webinar, and thank you also for organizing this more than timely webinar, considering that the consultations on the heating and cooling strategy and the electrification action plan, as Heidi will mention, are still ongoing, and those will be published next year. Yeah, so I'm a senior policy advisor at Euroheat and Power. I normally don't deal with flexibility issues, but I hope I will be able to give you a little bit of an insight of what our position is on that. Just a quick overview what Euroheat and Power actually represents. We're the district heating and cooling association at European level. Our networks cover around 13% of the heat market in Europe. We have more or less 80 million citizens connected to our heat networks in the EU, um, with about 19,000 district heating networks in the EU. Um, yeah, I wanted to start by giving you a little bit of a context in terms of why we're talking about flexibility and what other issues this is linked to. And one of the big issues is, of course, decarbonization of heating and cooling. Nowadays, renewable energy generates almost 50% of Europe's total electricity production. But then if we consider, and you can see that in the charts on the left of my slide, heating and cooling is still largely dependent on fossil fuels and imported fossil fuels. So the transition to clean heating and cooling is urgent. It's an imperative. And it's also considering that it renders us dependent on fossil fuels imported by other countries. It is also a matter of energy security. And finally, it's a matter of affordability. Actually, just yesterday, the International Energy Agency published its 2025 World Energy Outlook, saying that the EU energy prices are still, or that the EU energy is still more than 20% pricier than in the previous decade. And it sees as one of this big solution is the electrification. And so, from a district heating and cooling point of view, electrification is also for us one of the big pillars of the decarbonization of heating and cooling. We made already quite a good progress considering that 44.1% of our energy comes from renewable and waste heat, but we need to do more. This is, however, not so easy. Um, Actually, there is an Acer 2024 market monitoring report that outlined the challenges to that and mentioning that limited market flexibility causes price volatility. So we're again talking about the affordability issue. And also that the to manage EU power grid congestion has reached up to 4 billion euros in 2023 in costs. So there is a need to act on that to increase flexibility to be able to um, um, adjust for this added electrification. And in fact, the same Acer report suggests that by 2030, Europe must double its flexible capacity. So basically, this leaves us with two major solutions. There is, on the one hand, the need to expand and optimize existing grids and build new ones. And there's the need to invest in flexibility solutions. And that's so for the second point, that's where district heating and cooling comes in. Because district heating and cooling can provide flexibility to the grid, basically by acting on two levels. District heating and cooling networks, of course, can use thermal resources, and that can free up electricity to decarbonize other end uses. So it can use renewable heat sources such as geothermal, solar, or bioenergy. And district heating and cooling can use and store renewable electricity, for instance, when prices are low or negative. So it's this factor of being a multi-energy system that helps district heating cooling to be a flexibility asset. It can do that also, for instance, by linking sectors, enhancing sector coupling between, for instance, industrial sites and district heating and cooling, reusing waste heat from these sites, absorbing excess renewable energy, for instance, through large heat pumps and e-boilers, or also thermal storage for future use. And as I mentioned, optimize the use of renewable energy. And yeah, I have just on this slide shown you a little bit what district heating can deliver, but also what different tools we can use with district heating and cooling. And actually, um, this is showing first results, or not just first results, but real results, as our district heating and cooling market outlook from 2025 suggests there's three major trends that we can see in how our networks are developing. We have the defossilization and diversification of energy sources. We have increased electrification and system integration, and the networks are expanding and growing. And more concretely, as I talked about our flexibility toolbox, you can see that also in the increase of large heat pumps by 44% from 2022 to 2023, and the increase of the use of electric boilers by 80%. So the results are there, or the results are showing, and we need to continue on this path. To make it even more concrete, how district heating and cooling can enable electrification and reduce costs. So, for instance, in Sweden, the district heating networks have contributed to reducing peak capacity by 10 gigawatts, according to the Swedish energy agencies. They also have reduced system costs for final consumers by 40% in the Netherlands. And according to our newest figures that have been presented only last week by the University of Aalborg, there is a projected cost reduction of 2.5 to 3.1% thanks to energy system integration with district heating networks, in a scenario where they represent a 55% share in the heat market by 2050. That's more or less 40 to 50 billion euros. So we really can see the benefits of coupling heat and electricity infrastructure to make them more flexible and more stable. And I want to also highlight another point that comes with that, and I've mentioned it earlier as one of the big tools, but just to illustrate that while the solutions are there, we need to really act on that and try to further continue to develop. And as I mentioned, so there's the huge potential of thermal energy storage in combination with district heating and cooling, sorry. There has been a growth of 24.7% compared to 2019, but we do need to have more. In fact, 22 times more by 2050 to reach the energy system as we would like to have it, meaning resilient and climate neutral. And this coincides also with a growth in district heating and cooling networks in order for them to be able to deliver on the flexibility and the decarbonization. And the University of Aalborg suggests in that regard 55% in 2050. That implies an EU-wide annual increase of 5.2%, which, considering that both in Germany and France, you had a 6% annual growth, in the period of 2019 to 2023. This growth is doable. It is within reach. And so, oh, sorry, I went too fast. So that coincides, of course, with massive investments. And with that, I would like to introduce and come slowly to an end, to then conclude on our policy demands. We see a huge need for upfront cost 1.16 trillion by 2050. But we see that the capex is, while it is initially very high, on the long term, the OpEx is relatively low, and that's how we see it as a manageable technology. So to conclude, what do we need all in all to increase system flexibility by integrating heat and electricity infrastructures? So from our point of view, we see it as a very positive thing that the European Commission is thinking about the synergies between the upcoming electrification action plan and the heating and cooling strategy. And I'm sure Heidi will come back on that later on. While still, of course, for us, it's important to maintain the importance of the heating and cooling strategy as one of these two pillars for increasing flexibility in the energy system and our decarbonization goals. So that should not be forgotten. More concretely, we want to see district heating and cooling networks for the advantages that I have just mentioned. We want it to be considered as a flexibility infrastructure and, for instance, allow their participation and flexibility in balancing markets. I think there's also value in reforming the electricity price components for clean heat. That means reducing taxes for electricity, which, for instance, in Finland has shown great results when it comes to the take-up of e-boilers or heat pumps, thanks to lower electricity taxes. And finally, when it comes to planning the road ahead, we need to mandate local heat planning in every member state, and ideally put in place a joint planning with electricity DSOs and TSOs. And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation and hand over maybe to the next speaker.
Yes, thank you so much, Luca. A reminder, I remind all of the presents that you are free to write your questions on the chat box below, but during the Q&A session, you're also gonna be able to open up your mic and ask your questions and comments that you have straight to the speakers. In the meantime, I will present the next speaker for the policy session. Her name is Heidi Adamson, and she has collected extensive experience in the energy sector since completing her master's thesis in 1995. She began her career at the Institute for Public Finance and Infrastructure Policy at the Technical University of Vienna, and she later progressed to managing projects at the Austrian Institute of Ecology and also the Institute of Social Ecology at Alpine Adria University. Heidi also played a pivotal role in coordinating the Austrian energy efficiency monitoring body at the Austrian Energy Agency. And in 2011, she transitioned to the federal government, where she served as the head of the unit responsible for energy efficiency in buildings. Since 2023, she has been serving as a second national expert in the DG Energy of the European Commission. And now she will talk a little bit more about the upcoming heating and cooling strategy. Heidi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivan, and good morning. Yeah, heating and cooling strategy. As you know, the Commission is drafting a heating and cooling strategy together with the Electrification Action Plan. And why are we working on this strategy? There has been a strategy long time ago, 2016. The framework has changed dramatically in between, so it needs to be updated. The old strategy needs to be updated. And we have also new framework conditions. You very well remember the situation we had in the last years, according to the scarcity of gas, rising gas prices, rising electricity prices. So all this makes a new framework strategy necessary. I will skip more or less this slide because Luca presented the important figures here. Just one point to stress is that for households, the heating and cooling is very, very important topic when it comes to costs, energy costs for households, because space and water heating makes around 77, 78% of the the final energy consumed by all the households in 2023. So this is really a factor for affordability for households also. And the rest you very well have heard from Luca. I also want, before I go to the details of the heating and cooling strategy, I would like to remind you on the existing framework, because there is already a lot in place. I will go to the details in the Energy Efficiency Directive and to the Renewable Energy Directive. We have further interesting, necessary, important regulation for the heating and cooling sector, but these two directives are, in my view, the main important ones for the sector. So in the Energy Efficiency Directive, you have Article 25 and 26. Article 25 is on planning. And you might very well know the comprehensive heating and cooling assessments to be prepared by the member states on the national level. This is since years in place. This is a good practice, and member states are delivering here the plans. It's on the top level. So national planning for heating and cooling, planning of measures how to improve efficiency in heating and cooling. And newly in the recast 2023 Energy Efficiency Directive, we introduced the regional and local authorities also to prepare local heating and cooling plans, because we have seen that the national plan is important, but when it comes to heating and cooling, it's so inhomogeneous. It's so locally dependent what's going on in this sector. So it needs to be a regional heating and cooling plan. Therefore, for the big municipalities, so population higher than 45,000, for those municipalities, it's mandatory to provide heating and cooling plans. And these heating and cooling plans are assessed by national authorities. Then we have in the Energy Efficiency Directive also an article defining what is efficient district heating. So giving the outline, giving the direction of the sector, of the heating and cooling sector, to develop towards a decarbonized heating and cooling system. Definition of what is efficient district heating and cooling, as well as newly introduced also conversion plans on installation level, on system level, how to transform a district heating system into an efficient district heating system to meet the requirements defined in Article 26. This is what the Energy Efficiency Directive delivers for heating and cooling sector. Then we have in the Renewable Energy Directive also two relevant articles. It's 23 and 24, Articles 23, 24. 23, defining binding national targets for renewables in heating and cooling, and the option to count waste heat and electricity as flexibility options. So to incentivize to use waste heat and electricity. And we have Article 24, very important in my view, also for flexibility issues, because not only covering the national targets for renewables in district heating and cooling, the 2.2 percentage points increase every year, but also a mandatory framework to cooperate between the district heating system and the electricity DSOs to ensure that the potential of the system services that district heating could provide are really taken into account in grid planning. So actually we have in place in Article 24 a regulation to link electricity with the district heating systems and to improve the infrastructure development towards the direction to integrate those heating and electricity systems. And of course, also support for participation in electricity markets and whatever is needed. And Also, it facilitates the use of waste heat and cold by this coordination framework between district heating and the potential waste heat resources. So what I wanted to say with these two slides is there is a framework in place that needs to be used, but what we see is that this framework is not used in a way that delivers the full potential that could be delivered. So we have to improve it. And therefore also the heating and cooling strategy that will concentrate on how to best support member states and stakeholders in implementing the legislation that we have in place. So it's not about creating new legislation, not about creating new obligations, but bringing to the ground the obligations that are in place and trying to enforce the implementation of existing legislation. What are the two main important documents the heating and cooling strategy will be based on? This is the action plan for affordable energy and the roadmap for energy efficiency. The Affordable Energy Action Plan was part of the Clean Industrial Deal, was presented in February 2025, and is based on four pillars. That's lowering costs. This is being ready for any crisis, energy security. Completing the energy union means lower prices also, and attracting investments and delivery. And it comprises 8 actions, and action 5, completing the energy union, covers also the heating and cooling strategy. So this heating and cooling strategy and also the electrification action plan are part of the attempt of the activity to complete the energy union. And a little bit later, published mid of 2025, the roadmap for energy efficiency, also including 10 actions on energy efficiency, areas of energy efficiency, covering grants, covering additional efforts to improve industrial energy efficiency on SME level, and also covering 6 concrete deliverables by the end of 2026. And one of these deliverables is the heating and cooling strategy and the electrification strategy, the electrification action plan. And you find in this roadmap for energy efficiency also a very concrete number on waste heat recovery, on use of waste heat recovery. This deliverable says that 11% of the EU heat demand should be unlocked from waste heat recovery. So here you have a direction, here you have a clear direction of which in which the heating and cooling strategy will go. Now concrete, what can be expected from this heating and cooling strategy? What are the objectives? As said before, it will be elaborated in parallel to the electrification action plan. And why? Because it is important to ensure the complementarity and the consistency of the both documents, heating and electrification strategy. Why? It should fully account for the interlinkages between both sectors. The strategy will aim at promoting the local level. As said before, heating is a local topic. It will promote affordable energy, affordable heating. So we will take care that not the most expensive technologies, but the affordable technologies will find their place in the heating and cooling sector. It should be secure. It should be as secure, and it's important to have this secure heat supply. And of course, decarbonization, clean sources of heat are in the center of this strategy. It will focus on increasing efficiency gains through the system integration and waste heat recovery. These are the two main pillars in addition to clean heat technologies. Of course, heat pumps, thermal storage, district heating are in our view clean technologies, clean heat technologies to complement electrification. And It will facilitate the delivery of the goals and the measures foreseen in the current legislation that is, as mentioned before, RED and EED, but also the EPBD. Also here, don't forget, here in the EPBD, we have a lot of regulation in place to support decarbonizing secure and affordable heating and cooling system. And of course, eco-design, I don't need to mention all the legislation in place. You very well know that we have many rules that are supportive and that give the framework for this. What will be the key topics of the strategy? It's three. It's system integration, as mentioned before. It's the technology, the clean technologies and resources that we want to foster to be used, reaching from deployment of heat pumps, geothermal energy, solar energy, but of course also waste heat recovery. And it is the demand side as a third important pillar. Demand side, industry as well as buildings. Demand side because affordability is so important, and demand side because it brings a lot of flexibility also into the system. So it's not only thermal storage in district heating systems, for example, it's also the demand side flexibility that we can use to improve the resilience of the electricity grid. And therefore, these three things to be covered in the heating and cooling strategy. And how will the cooling and heating and cooling strategy address inefficiencies that we see now in the system? It is on the one hand through better planning, through a better infrastructure, and through market development. So we think that a whole sector approach is necessary to address the affordability and the competitiveness, and to tap into the strong European industry and manufacturing base for heating and cooling solutions, and to zoom into the deployment of the key and untapped technologies such as geothermal. So we have a lot of potentials. We have a lot of possibilities that we can untap, and we now need the framework, not legal, in place, but other framework conditions, enabling structures to make use of all those potentials. Through actions to enable the waste heat recovery and thermal-based flexibility, this strategy will advance the energy system integration, building a complementary package with the electrification action plan, and being developed therefore also in parallel. And the strategy will consider the district heating and cooling networks as a backbone of the decarbonized and efficient smart energy systems in cities. So for us in the city, where we have a quite high energy heat density, district heating systems are a preferred option. Because why? Because district heating systems deliver the possibility to make use of further flexibility, improving electricity grid resilience, and because district heating systems make us available to use to untap the waste heat potential. Therefore, we will concentrate in the strategy in cities on district heating systems. Of course, we have areas where district heating is not the preferred option because heat densities are too low or other reasons might appear. And of course, there it's important to have also clean technologies like heat pumps, like further electrification of systems to decarbonize heating in those areas where district heating is not the preferred option. And for this, we need enabling market conditions. These market conditions need to be developed to strengthen the business case, to make waste heat recovery usable, and to reduce also regulatory barriers. We need to improve the regulation in place. We see that we have a lot of barriers, and this is what definitely needs to be improved. Yeah, I think this is more or less coming to an end. What we are intending with the heating and cooling strategy, what you can expect. Perhaps just to finalize, what about the timeline? As already mentioned, the strategy should be finalized in Q1 2026, both electrification action plan and heating and cooling strategy. You have till 20th November possibility to contribute to the open public consultation, and I'm sure there will be further workshops as the one that we had last Friday, a stakeholder event discussing the outline of the new strategy. Thanks a lot, and sorry for being a little bit too long.
Thank you, Heidi. No, you're right on time. Thanks for presenting the existing framework we already have for heating and cooling and for giving us a little bit of an overview of what to expect in the upcoming heating and cooling strategy. Now we move from policy to technology side of this workshop. And now it's my pleasure to present the next speakers. I will start with Ivan. Ivan has worked as a researcher for more than a decade in a wide range of topics, from energy flexibility to balancing and spot markets, EV aggregation, and battery storage. He finalized his PhD in 2021 on the topic of EV aggregation, balancing services provision. And of course, he has published more than 70 papers in top scientific journals. Also speaking in this session of the workshop is Claudia Vanucci. She has a background in energy engineering and has been working as a research engineer at IFER since 2021 in the group of local multi-energy systems with expertise in the fields of district heating and cooling, sector coupling, and combustion technologies. I now give the floor to Ivan to start the presentation about the technology side. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Hope you can hear me well. So today I'll go through Slovenian demo and try to connect it to some policy insights and challenges that we encountered so far. So there will be let's say four larger topics in my part of presentation. First, I'll discuss a bit how Slovenian demo is operated. Then, what are the use cases for flexibility provision within Slovenian demo? And then we'll switch to some challenges that we encountered and some open policy questions coming from the demo and those challenges. Okay, so the main idea of Slovenian demo is to basically to connect two sides. From one side, we have flexibility assets such as CHP, PV, some other generation with different markets. And we are within the Slovenian demo, we are observing three different markets, and this is the DSO flexibility platform, which provides signal from the DSO when flexibility is needed to solve some of the DSO issues within DSO grid. Then we have balancing markets, and we focus on AFRR, and we also have spot markets where we focus on intraday. So the idea of the demo is to connect both real and simulate some of the assets to flexibility trading platform. The focus is particularly on those connected with multi-energy systems. We are connected to one CHP plant in Ljubljana. So this CHP plant is a bridge between the power and district heating and cooling system, and its behavior can affect both systems, and it can provide flexibility in both ways. So the idea here is that we mimic those markets to mimic real flexibility markets. So we set it up as close as real markets as possible, and to eventually trade asset flexibility on different markets, and to control assets in real time according to different flexibility signals. As a result, we expect to have a wider understanding of flexibility provision process from different multi-energy system assets on different markets and how those signals from different markets is impacting um, uh, how they're impacting each other, and to have let's say elaborate on lessons learned and challenges encountered into this pretty complex flexibility provision from different assets. I think I saw a question, what's simulate SimGen? So yes, so as I said, we have real assets connected to the platform right now in the demo side. So these are the CHP plants and PVs, but we also have a range of simulated generators and other flexibility assets. That's what SimGen stands for in the figure. Then I'll move on to use cases that we want to touch in our demo site. So I group them in three different wider groups. The first thing is district heating and cooling use cases, and we have two of them here. The first one is district heating and cooling optimization through asset control. So to use the heat assets for the purpose of district heating and cooling system optimization. And the second one is to use those assets not only for district heating and cooling system, but also to provide flexibility to power system. Then we have the second use case, and those are DSO use cases, where we use dynamic thermal rating on transformer substations to improve DSO flexibility procurement. That's the first one, and we also have operation and trading of flexibility assets for DSO. So this is one of the signals coming from the let's say market side. And we have the wholesale use cases, where we have operation and trading of flexibility assets for balancing services and markets. Then we have for spot trading, and we have operation and trading of flexible assets for multi-markets. So where we basically want to have all the markets at the same time and see how the assets will behave, marketing on all of them in the same period. Okay, and now I'll switch to some of the challenges that we encountered. So when we talk about flexibility, there are many different companies or stakeholders involved, and they often have different goals and views on flexibility. And those different companies can be flexibility traders, aggregators, or trading platform providers. Then they can be flexibility asset owners. And there are many different asset types that can be included in flexibility provision, and each of them has their own view what they would like to get from this flexibility provision and how it affects their processes. Then we have district heating and cooling operators and CHP operators. They have their own view. What does flexibility mean? They have their needs for the flexibility internally in their systems, but they also can provide this flexibility externally to the power system. And we have transmission system operators and distribution system operators who observe flexibility from your viewpoint of their grids. And what they want to do is to protect the grid operation and to have continuous power supply through their grids. So if any of the flexibility provision affects power flows in their networks and can create some additional issues, this is something that they need to spot and react on. So I would say that overall coordination around flexibility is still lacking. There are a lot of competing use cases. For example, the optimum operational flexibility for the TSO often can provide negative impact to the DSO, or optimum on the wholesale markets can have a negative impact to some local grid. Yeah, and all those different markets have different market rules, and there's still, even though there's a lot of harmonization in energy markets, there's still a lot of work to be done to harmonize everything. And the last point is the specific focus is on power and heat systems, and both of them are some kind of energy systems, and they have their own rules, and operation rules and planning rules, and to provide flexibility and communicate better. There's also a lot of work that could be done to harmonize those stakeholders. Also, there are technical requirements for connections towards assets, and they are diverse. So there are many different manufacturers, many different requirements from the TSO side, from the asset owner side, and they can also act as a slow down the whole flexibility procurement and enabling process. Yeah, for small assets, they're still very, relatively high transactions costs and uncertain revenue streams. So the costs are taking into account metering and telemetry, connections, aggregation fees. On the other side, we have uncertain flexibility potential, uncertain volumes that are provided or activations, and uncertain prices coming from those markets. There's also a lot of coordination complexities with those assets to coordinate, to even start provide flexibility, many different options in contracts and pre-qualification procedures, etc. But also during the provision, how the signal is dispatched, how the baselines are estimated, and how the flexibility at the end is verified. And also there's, from the power and heat system side, there's different perspective from the user side. It's not the same for the end users when they use heat and when they use electricity. So this is also a perspective that should be taken into account. Finally, some of the potential solutions. Yeah, so there's a need to harmonize view on and coordination of flexibility among different stakeholders. So there should be we should invest a bit more in education, joint workshops, and some kind of meetups between different stakeholders to align on what flexibility is, how it can be used, and what are the requirements for its usage. Also, especially more effort to align DHC operators and power system operators to harmonize as much as possible market rules and conditions, as well as technical connection requirements, and to simplify potential revenues for small assets. Yeah, so this is in short from my side, from what we did and what we do in the project, and what are some of the potential challenges and options to solve them in future. So yeah, thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, I will gladly answer them.
Thank you, Ivan. I now give the floor also to Claudia for the technology session.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks both to Evan for the nice introduction, and to Ivan. I think you touched lots of points that we're going to see with my presentation as well, hopefully. If I can change the slides. Okay, made it. Great. So yes, I will be going more a bit into the detail of how fifth generation district heating and cooling networks could be used for flexibility. So this can be seen as something similar to the French demo site that we have in SynergyNets, and also building on what has already been touched from Luca and Heidi on basically how to decarbonize and build the district heating and cooling system of the future. So yes, brief agenda. So obviously introducing the concept of fifth generation district heating and cooling networks for those that are not familiar with it. Then see how it can provide flexibility and which are the challenges and opportunities. And finally, like touching really briefly on policy's need that we think are identified from such an analysis. So first of all, what it is and why. So we start with a low temperature loop. Basically, there's different configuration, but generally what we can always assume is that it should stay around 25 to 40 degrees Celsius. So something around ground temperature. So that, yeah, that is also often referred to as ambient loop. And then obviously we need a series of customers. This is just an example that you will see. Can be obviously different customers. So for example, we have a hotel that needs heating and cooling. We have a mall that needs heating and cooling, and an office. Again, just examples. What is interesting to see here is, first of all, they usually, all of the customer need both heating and cooling because we need to maintain the temperature in the loop around this range. So we also need to have a more or less balanced heating and cooling demand throughout the year to have an efficient district heating and cooling network of fifth generation. What is also extremely interesting to see is that we not only have consumers, we also have what could be considered a prosumer. So basically, for example, here, the mall not only needs heating and cooling, but can contribute to increasing the temperature in the loop by offloading waste heat. So that is also one of the great advantages of fifth generation district heating and cooling. So by having such a low operating temperature, they can also be a great vector for basically gathering waste heat from different sources. So now we've seen our consumers, we've seen that some of them only consume, some of them also produce. We obviously also need some generating technology. So for example, such a low temperature loop, it's a great fit for heat pumps. Obviously, to reduce, let's say, peaks or generally to make a more efficient system, it is a great idea to also have some heat storages. And finally, we also need to cool down the temperature of the loop at times, also for the cold provision. And we can think of dry coolers. So now you've seen the technologies, you've seen the consumers. As of right now, there is no connection to the electricity grid. So how can we provide flexibility? Well, both heat pump and dry coolers are actually power to heat or power to cold technologies. So in that sense, we can provide flexibility. So they would be, in this specific case, our main assets for flexibility provision. So yes, let's get into that. So yes, we've seen we have heat pumps and dry coolers. They can be considered direct flexibility providers because obviously they're directly connected to the electricity grid. So ramping them up and down or shutting them off as needed by flexibility requirements is something that will directly impact the electricity load, while the heat storages, they're not directly connected to the electricity grid, but it can be seen as an indirect flexibility provider. So basically, they allow us and fifth generation district heating and cooling network operator to decouple the electricity load, so basically the heat pump in this case, and the heat provision. So we can use the heat storage, the heat in the heat storage to basically not touch too much the heat pump, so the heat pump can provide flexibility while we still manage to satisfy our customers. So now this brings us obviously to a series of challenges. So as we've said already, and I think Ivan also mentioned it, it is especially for fifth generation district heating and cooling, very complex operation and multi-asset coordination. So also that impacts as well in the challenges. And usually such systems are quite small, as we said, complex to operate. So we don't go for extremely giant fifth generation district heating and cooling network. So in that frame of mind, having a large, let's say, minimum bid size can be an obstacle for fifth generation district heating and cooling network to participate into flexibility market. Then other two aspects that are extremely important are customer contracts and the fragmented ownership. So sometimes it is the case that we have, for example, a heat pump that is decentralized and it is on the site of the consumer. So maybe the operator cannot even touch the setting points of the heat pump to provide flexibility because it's not actually the owner of the asset. And also customer contracts. So as of right now, in most cases, obviously, as we said, general presentation, there is very little room for modification of the different operating temperature, so forward temperature of the district heating and cooling network to the final customer. So that also impacts the ability to provide flexibility as well. And obviously seasonal constraints. So I feel on average, the customer is much more likely to not complain if it's a bit too hot in summer, but it will complain a lot if it is freezing cold in their hotel room in winter. So obviously sometimes we can offer more flexibility in a season rather than another one. And for all of these, we need data sharing and transparency in between all of the different assets. So the district heating and cooling network operator, the customer, the DSO. So that also encounter issues of cybersecurity. And sometimes the regulation can be a bit ambiguous as to who has to provide the data, where, what, and such things. So yes, lots of challenges. There's also some great opportunities for fifth generation district heating and cooling network to provide flexibility. So it is two-folded. So obviously it can provide balancing and ancillary services in a short-term market. But if we think about large thermal energy storage or generally lots of thermal energy storage, it could also provide a multi-hour shifting for day ahead and intraday market. So let's say we can take advantage of lots of different services provision. It could also aid in the local congestion management. And as we already said, I think lots of the points have already been mentioned in the absorptions of renewables by integrating this sector coupling. For the district heating and cooling network, it could aid, especially with enhancing and fostering the implementation of fifth generation with revenue stacking. So basically, we do not only have revenues from the sale of heating and cooling, but also we could have revenues by diversifying and providing flexibility services to the electricity grid. So finally, what are the policies need that we think are needed? Lowering the minimum bid size if possible, or allowing aggregation of multi-site where needed to reach the minimum bid size for such small system. Another thing that could be really interesting is that the dynamic network tariff could reward this off-peak charging of the thermal energy storage and local congestion relief in a, let's say, more advanced way, and that would improve the margins of the district heating and cooling network. That could be translated either in enhancing the implementation of fifth generation district heating and cooling network, or also lowering the price of heating and cooling for the final customer, which was one of the points that we touched on today. Obviously, we've seen thermal energy storage key technology for all of these things. So allowing grants and loans, basically giving out incentives for thermal energy storage implementation could help a lot in having more flexibility. Oops. And finally, yes, how do you say, officially recognizing fifth generation district heating network as a flexibility infrastructure in the local energy plans. So basically what was already mentioned today could streamline the permitting and also enable this access to grid services contract. So that would be all on my side. And yeah, we can do questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you also, Ivan, for the technology session. Now we move on to the last session of this workshop before the Q&A. And speaking will be Alessandro Cirocco, who will talk a little bit more about the Milan demo case of the SynergyNet project. So a little bit about Alessandro. He works at A2A in the Technology Development Division and serves as the work package for leader in the SynergyNet project. His role focuses on coordinating activities related to the integration and optimization of energy networks within the project framework. Now I give the floor to you, Alessandro.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. So, brief introduction about the Italian demo. So, the Italian demo is located in Milan City, in a portion of Milan City that we will see afterwards, and we work together with RSC mainly, that is the Research Center on Energy System, Unarete that is the DSO of Milan, A2A with two different groups, the corporate, where I work for, and A2A Calore Servizi, that is the district heating manager. Together with us, there are also Feder Consumatori, that is our support for knowledge and widespread the initiative within the different partners, and EIRU, that is the National Association for the District Heating. So getting into the Milan district heating, it has more than 300 kilometers of network with, these are some of the main buildings connected. You can see the Duomo, Palazzo Marino is where there is the municipality of Milan, and other important buildings within Milan, with more than 120,000 carbon dioxide avoided every year. So this data refers to 2022, but we upgrade it more or less every year. And getting inside the different portion of the district in, we have three main networks. The part of the ovest part that you can see on the left, the north part that is of course on the north, and the S part that is the one where we are talking about within SynergyNets. So and here you can see also very important very important with our plants that are located all over Milan with different application and sizes. Today we will focus on the S network and on the plant number 15, that is Canavese power plant, that we deep dive in the presentation. Okay, so talking about the Italian demo, we have to talk both on district heating network and electrical network. There is also gas network that is always managed by Unareti. The electric network has more than 4,000 of end users involved in the experimentation, more than 100 of medium voltage lines, and like three times the low voltage network, more than 200 of megawatt of contractor power that is connected within the Ponto substation, that is the power portion of electrical grid involved, and more than 30 megawatt of renewable energy sources connected to the grid. Focusing on the district heating network, we have more than 700 of equivalent connected buildings with more than 238 gigawatt hour of heating supplied every year. All this heat is supplied by Canavese, that is a cogeneration plant that is not so far from the Linate airport, and it has three cogenerating gas engines, so three gas boilers, two different heat pumps, two thermal storage that are used to do peak shaving during the different part of the day and also the thermal season and outside the thermal season, and the electrode boiler that is very useful to reach the peak when there is some unforecasted peak within the day. Afterward, you can see some images of the different power plants, of the different devices that are within the power plants that are part of a study. In this moment, we are also building the thermal storage, the thermal solar for helping reduce the CO2 emission within the Canavese power plant. As I said before, we have more than 60 kilometers of pipes, more than 700 of buildings equivalent connected, and here you can see different portion of the Milan's S Milan and different buildings that are connected to our district heating network, such as La Scala, that is a very important theater within Milan, Palazzo Marino, so the municipality place, and the Tribunale, that is where there are all the lawyer staff. So, coming back to the synergy nets, we are talking about the Italian demo. So the objective of the demo is to identify the impact of the distributed energy resources on the electrical network and district heating network, and how they can work together in integrated way. So the first results are that we have done several simulation and several tests. So the results that we will publish in our deliverable that has to be published within this year are that the cogeneration plants like Canavese can help a lot the electricity grid during the congestion period, that in particular are in the summer period in the Milan city, and also that thanks to the collaboration with RSE, also the energy management system can help a lot to optimally configure the Canavese power plant to provide the services not only to the DSO but also to the TSO, so the transmission system operator. And of course, our goal for the district cleaning is that there will be no impact on the customers that are served by the district heating while we are giving services to DSO or TSO. So going to the district heating modeling procedures, this work was done thanks to the collaboration between A2A, Fraunhofer, and VAFER. So we started giving to our colleague the topological network, so the shapefile of the district heating grid, and also all the characteristics connected to them, such as the diameters of the pipes and the type of users that are connected to the east grid. And then we started with GeoPandas, switching to NetworkX. That was a network tool used in Python to analyze the coherency of the grid. And after there was the Panda pipes system that was used to test how the grid was performing. And we have several results like the hosting capacity analysis, so to understand how will be the next scenarios in Milan district heating network. Of course, the validation of the model and also the simulation of the mass flow as it from right now with our consumption. That's all for my side.
Okay, thank you so much, Alessandro. I will now give the floor to the moderator, Renato, who will do the roundtable and the Q&A session. Renato is the coordinator of the SynergyNet projects, and he's also from IFER. Renato, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Aaron, for the introduction. And I would say, first of all, thanks to everyone for participating to this workshop. We had the possibility today to really go through different topics from different points of view, and I have to say I'm already very happy with the results, and I raised in my mind already a few questions. But first of all, I would like to make a short remind of what is SynergyNet. So SynergyNet is a publicly funded project which is a length of 4 years, and right now we entered the last year of the project. So that's, let's say, the most crucial part. It's when we are producing results and outputs. And in the SynergyNets project, there are 3 demo cases that we had the pleasure to see today. So we have the French demo case, the Italian one, and the Slovenian one. But on top of that, we also these are the 3 demonstrator sites, but we also have 2 other use cases in Spain, in the city of Cordoba, and also in Sweden, in the city of Västerås. And we will try also to tackle some topics in our next webinar, so the 4th of December. Now we have also an official date. So for the one that joined us later, please, you can find the link in the chat for the next registration. And since I don't see any question in the chat, I would maybe point my first question. That's maybe a bit more for Aide, but also for Luca. As I said, basically we are going to the final part of the project. So it's now when we are producing our results, the outputs, but also there is a very important section that maybe sometimes is a bit underestimated, I would say, which is the impact one. So what is the project bringing to the community? And since also, how do we communicate to the extern the results that we obtain? I wanted to ask you, in general, which are the impacts that you expect from a project like SynergyNets, which is a very full, let's say, it's a consortium which is done by research center, universities, industrial partners. So we would be able to cover a pretty much bright part of Publicum, but how do we best communicate to you, to the community, and to the European Commission as well?
I don't know, Heide, do you want to go first, or?
As you prefer, Luca, as you prefer.
Well, I can give it a start. I think
And then I continue. Fine with this.
very good, perfect, thanks. Well, as you mentioned, I think about the impacts of projects like SynergyNets and how to communicate to externals. I think well, what we're doing here right now is, of course, very valuable, of course. And we have this webinar, so you're presenting the results, and I think this is one way to transmit what the good work that you're doing to other people as well. I think, but Heidi will elaborate certainly on this, but I think what we can see in general from our perspectives that the technologies are available. We have the companies that are willing to advance these solutions that we've also seen today. So there doesn't seem to be that much really in the way to advance the solutions that you have also worked on in the SynergyNets project. So it's more about how can we accelerate this? How can we, as you say, maybe also make it available to a broader public? And I think in that sense, that seems or it seems that the European Commission is trying to do that with the upcoming heating and cooling strategy. And this is something that we welcome and that we also, as an association, try to communicate towards EU policymakers that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in such a way. I mean, of course, we have to modernize, we have to develop, expand networks, but that we have, from a legislative point of view, really some provisions in place that just, I mean, I'm saying just, it's not that easy, but they need to be implemented and can be used by the sector to really advance on, for instance, flexibility solutions. But that's just maybe a first thought from my side.
Yeah, thanks. I fully agree. I think what the Commission, how to best communicate it on the Commission level is to summarize. I mean, the full report is important to go to the details wherever necessary, but to summarize in a fact sheet the main findings according to what can be improved, what can the Commission do to improve and to enable system integration, flexibility. I think this is the right point in time now, as the strategy, as the heating cooling strategy is now drafted. So of course, this strategy will include existing barriers to describe why the actions and activities proposed in the strategy need to be taken. So in the field of this project, in linking district heating system with electricity, in improving the flexibility of the systems. What can be done on the European level? Here, I think it's really important to distinguish between what can be done on a national level, what can building facility operators do, and what is really the role of the Commission. This is would be extremely helpful at the moment. What else can be done is, I mean, it's of course the platform, the tools that you developed are useful, no question, and it's very good to see in pilot projects. Yes, it works, it can be used, and it works. And I think to spread this positive message, what worked well, and also what needs to be improved or lessons learned to not to your communities. It's not a scientific community. Is the community of district heating operators. I think is more the Euroheat and Power members, or I don't know which associations on the European level are the best to spread this to their really district heating companies in, I don't know which city, in Slovakia, in Austria, in I don't know where. Yeah, so I think this would also be, here I often see a gap between the great results research produces and then to be really implemented on the ground. And I think this is this is really challenging. This is nothing that the Commission alone can do. I think here it needs several communication channels. I don't know, influencers among the district heating systems companies who really give a good example, who have a role of convincing, who can convince them. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That's indeed a very, very nice input for us. And I mean, exactly this gap, that was what we were trying also to cover in our project with this demonstrator. Finally, in the Canavese power plant, we had already our test, and end of November now also in the plant of Ljubljana, the new test will start. So it has been mentioned already by Alessandro, this Panda prosumer. So we also try to grow up, let's say, the open source tool community. So that's what we are trying to do, and also to, like you said, to publish those things, these events, like to make accessible to everyone. Like there is a report trying to explain, and yes, also in our next workshop, we will really try to open to everyone what we are producing. And maybe I will just add another very small question, because I mean, we are talking about communication, how to enhance communication. Sometimes you have to force communication, because people are just focusing on their work, so you have to force them to speak to each other. I was really interesting when you mentioned I think it was the article 24, when to make mandatory the cooperation between district heating and cooling and DSO. So maybe it's a naive question, but how do you plan to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a long time ago that member states had to transpose this. We don't have years of experience, let's say. And it's true. It's interesting that when of course, district heating representatives are sometimes visiting us, and whenever we ask what's going on with these Article 24 provisions, it's okay. Nice that we have this provision in an article, so it's not known. Neither by, I mean, it's known, of course, by the member states who implement it in their legislation, but obviously is not so widespread that now, since months, there is this possibility, and actually it should be communication institutionalized between district heating providers and the electricity grid operators. And this is not, yes, and you're fully right, this is our learning in the last months and weeks when we saw that the stakeholders are not aware of this. provision, really. We have to definitely go into it. We have structures on the European level to communicate with member states, concerted actions, and this will for sure be a topic for one of the next concerted actions in renewable and in energy efficiency. What for the moment, I don't know how we best reach out to the stakeholders. So, and this is perhaps you have here more ideas how to best get in touch or how to best make district heating providers aware of their possibility to actively demand this also, because there is a directive and there must be a national law infringement procedures to see in which member states this Article 24 and the provisions there might not be transposed in a way that they should be, will take longer. I think it would be more effective to make the stakeholders aware that there is a provision they can demand on to be fulfilled.
Yeah, that's definitely true. From first of all, there is Benjamin that is asking if you can provide a link or a reference to this article mandating the DSO-DHC cooperation.
Yes, of course I can.
Perfect. And finally, yes, I mean, we also have stakeholders. I mean, we are also right now organizing another workshop in Ljubljana, but will be in a hybrid. It will be offered in a hybrid version, so also online, trying to involve stakeholders, trying to make them aware, like you said, make them aware about all these possibilities, because very, very often they are just not aware. And of course, it's from our side also, we try to make it, let's say, applicable. So something that it makes sense for them to invest time and resources also to the cooperation. I would say definitely, I totally agree. And yes, indeed, I had another question. I'm sorry, I'm just monopolizing the discussion, but please, everyone, if you want to add something or have some comment, please do not hesitate. But that would have been a bit more technical question, and I was really interested in hearing the first result from Ivan. So concerning the Slovenian demonstrator. Finally, Ivan already partially answered my question, because he was saying, okay, we have some optimum point which are different between the optimum of the DSO and the optimum point of the TSO in the simulation and optimization. Of course, we have different, everyone has different goals. It could be different setting of the optimization, could be minimizing of cost, minimizing of emission, minimizing of fossil fuel. So there are different parameters that can be optimized, of course. And then we have the flexibility. So my question was even for you, when you went for the district heating and cooling optimization, so you were optimizing the whole system. What about if you compare that to the provision of flexibility? So when you try to enhance the flexibility, are those two type of optimization, let's say, fighting to each other, or you can still find an optimum point, maybe, which is the combination of improved energy efficiency, reduction of CO2 emission, reduction of cost, and maximization of flexibility? It sounds like a very good solution, but I think it's pretty complex to get all of these together at once.
Yeah, thank you for this question. So I would say they're both. There are synergies when you provide flexibility to one system. You can also extract some benefits to other system. But there are also sometimes there are some confronting points. But for example, some of the synergies might be that if you cut the peak in the heat power system, it means that your peak CHP units don't need to provide peak heat, which means they don't need to provide peak power at that moment. and there's space for providing flexibility in those periods. So there are benefits and synergies, but it's really hard to set them up. It's complex to manage both worlds. But this is one of the use cases actually that we have and that we want to tackle through the demo and to see what can be those synergies and benefits. If we provide flexibility in the heat system, what are the benefits? What are the negative sides and what are the benefits in the power system?
Okay, I see. Yeah, I was kind of expecting this answer, but thank you very much, because indeed it's finally many parameters to be optimized at the same time. It's not possible, and of course you have to find the compromises and then try to understand which vector, how to say, which stakeholder or demand to be
Yeah, but
optimized.
it's if I may add, it's not only I worked a lot in before in the mathematical optimization, and it's one thing when you have where you want to optimize both system, you have one model, you work from the same angle, everything. But here it's not like that. There are two different systems, two different stakeholders, and every one of them have their own customers and their own needs and their own requirements for their grids. Technical requirements and conditions, regulatory conditions, and here they both want to optimize their side, and now through this they need to somehow merge and connect and have joint benefits. So it's more complex than just let's optimize everything from one point, because it's not one point. These are separate entities and viewpoints.
Absolutely, absolutely. And maybe since we are just running a bit out of time, a last question for Alessandro, because it was a bit recogniting what Ida said, that district heating and cooling, I mean, of course, they have to be scaled down. Let's say we cannot have a regulation which is taking all Europe. We have different framework, different technologies, but also weather condition and so on. And I was thinking about the project in SynergyNets. We're working right now on the replicability. And then finally, you already show us today some potential other district heating and cooling that can be, let's say, replicating what you are doing right now in Canavese. Of course, they were still in the Milan area. So geographically speaking, that were not big difference. But if maybe you had also had the opportunity to see other Italian, I mean, between North and South Italy, weather conditions are still changing, or in general, also at European level, if you saw already those difficulties in applying a replicability methodology for all these district heating and cooling, or maybe it was pretty similar in your case.
Okay, talking about Milan, Brescia, Bergamo, that are the three main cities that where I2A works, and we have more data on that. I can say that the district heating are very, very important for the support of electrical network due to their characteristic, such as Canavese is very flexible because it has also the thermal storage that is a particular device that not all the plants have, or such big dimension all the plants have. So this is very helpful for the support of electrical grid. But in principle, what we are looking right now in it ways that the district heating can play a crucial role in supporting the flexibility, the DSO flexibility markets, not only in the summer period where there is no thermal season, but also in the winter period where we have not so high peak load demand, but in this moment, but we foresee that in 2030 we will increase a lot our demand due to the electrification of consumption. And this is not only for the congestion management, but also voltage regulation, and can be also for not for the emergency, I can say, but also for the scheduling of the work of our technician that goes within the field of DSO and district heating and gas and so on.
I see. So we can expect also, let's say, changing demand, changing requests, also linked to the electrification that will
Yeah.
come in the next decades. Okay, Evan. So I stop my questions, but thanks to all of you for your answer. Really, really interesting. But I let you make the closure.
Okay, thank you, Renato, for the questions, and thank you all the speakers for answering them so thoroughly. So yeah, we reached the end of the first SynergyNets Policy Workshop. Again, I thank you all of the speakers and the moderator for participating, all of the audience who joined us today. Once again, the events team for doing an amazing job as well. I invite once more everyone to join our second SynergyNets Policy Workshop happening on the 4th of December. The link is on the chat, but also you can visit the European Power website on events webpage. You can see there and register for it. It will be the same as this one at 11 and we'll finish at 12:30. So same time on the 4th of December. So thank you everyone for joining. It was a pleasure having you and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye
Bye.
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 Bye bye.